You. Yeah, you. You and I, together, are going to jump into the world of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom once again to look at all kinds of myths. Certain claims that were made by people in the comments, but in the end, we don't know if they are true. So today we will look at more suggestions made by all of you lovely viewers to see which are real and which are fake. And don't forget, if you have any ideas or suggestions for this game or any others, leave them below and you might be featured in a video. So now that that is out of the way, let's jump into today's myths. Number 15. Now we start off with a claim that is quite simple. It didn't take me ages to test, but it's still an interesting one. According to this user, whose name looks really hard to pronounce, so I won't even try to do so, fusing a hoverstone to your shield will allow you to paraglide in a straight line. Now for context, these special zonai stones will actually stay in place in the air when activated, even when put in odd positions. So the idea here is logical. It could act as a platform, and so you will never come down, allowing you to fly forever. But when I tested it, I could instantly see that it didn't work, both when the shield is on my back, as well as on my feet due to shield surfing. So while the idea is cool, it just doesn't work. The hoverstone does nothing really, and as soon as you try to shield surf on the ground, you will immediately fall. In the end, it's not good for anything really, so this claim is false. Number 14. Now this next one was interesting. It was a claim that sounded incredibly silly, and to be honest, impossible. But if it was true, it would be very useful in a combat situation, and it's also very cheap. It doesn't cost any rare or valuable resources to pull off. According to LinkFerron2452, fusing mushrooms to shields allows you to always disarm an enemy when parrying, regardless of how strong they are. So you can disarm a boss bokoblin with a pot lid and a Hylian mushroom. As you can imagine, this would be very useful, and so I ventured into the wild with a Hylian mushroom attached to my shield. And I came across these bokoblins and instantly disarmed them with this special shield, which showed that it works. I even saw that it works with other types of mushrooms, but I had to know for sure that the mushrooms were the secret ingredient here. And so I also tried this with a normal shield, which didn't disarm the bokoblins. It just slapped the weapons to the side a bit, but it didn't disarm them. So the mushroom is very important, which means that this claim is true. Number 13. As we have seen in the game so far, all the different items and monster parts have special attributes, and one that is the most useful by far is the Key's Eye, because it makes shooting a whole lot easier. It automatically hits the target, so you can never miss. However, someone came up with a new use case. Trex Gamer asked me, what happens if you attach a Key's Eye to a sword and throw it? And this is a good question. Will it behave like an arrow does with this thing attached to it, or not at all? Well, I tested it and found out that it doesn't actually work. Each time I threw the sword, it would behave normally. It wouldn't correct my mistake or anything, so really it doesn't work. It's better to use these on arrows instead. So yeah, this claim is false. Number 12. In the last video, I messed around with a Stelnox, which is an undead Hinox that introduces some new challenges not seen with the normal version. And after people saw that boss in the video, someone asked me to do some more experiments with them. For example, Versatility asked, can you recall the Stelnox rib back at it? Please try this, Dr.Wily. And because this person asked so nicely, I had to try it. And so I once again went down into that hellhole to confront this cursed being. Now after running from him for a bit, he finally decided to throw one of his ribs, and I was able to use recall on it. However, it did very little. Sure, due to using this power it didn't hit me, but the rib didn't go back in place or dealt any damage to the Stelnox. So yeah, it works, this claim is real, but sadly enough it isn't some 400 IQ play where you can deal damage while dodging an attack. To be honest, it's better to just dodge the thing. Number 11. Now this next one sounded like a lot of fun when I read it in the comments section of one of my previous videos. It made me curious and sounded like a fun way to make the game harder. It's like a self-inflicted handicap, because Gelderone said making the Electrolizalfos wet with a watery fruit or any weapon with an opal makes them stronger with an electric aura. And this made a lot of sense to me. I was quite sure that this was actually possible in the game, but still I went into the desert to try it out. Now I found this electrical Lizalfos and hit him with a splash fruit, and immediately he got an electric aura that almost made it look like he was going Super Saiyan mode. And as expected, it became harder to deal with him as well, because as soon as he got close to me, I was screwed, and these guys are pretty fast. So yeah, this claim is true, and it's really cool to see that this works in the game. But at some point the effect will run out, so you gotta keep bombarding them with this stuff, which is the only downside. Number 10. Now sure, the Zelda series is all about combat, puzzles, dungeons, and exploring. However, there's also one other thing that it's known for. Minigames. We have seen these in every title to date, and they are always a lot of fun. I especially like those from the N64 era. And in Tears of the Kingdom, we come across them as well. And one of the most famous minigames that can be found is in Lurlin Village. A character there known as Cloyne, not sure if I pronounced that correctly, runs a 3-chest minigame there, and you can win all kinds of prizes. However, you need to pay in order to play, but according to user 09, you can play for free if you have a roasted porgy in your inventory. These fish can be found in the area, and you can even obtain them for free at the campfire near the dock. So I grabbed those and tested this claim, and it's true. He apparently loves them and will allow you to play if you give him a fish. So each time you come there, you can grab the roasted porgies around the campfire and use those to get all the items at the minigame for free, which is a really neat trick that I will be using every single time from now on. And it shows that this claim is true. Number 9. One of the first things that many of us discovered quite early on in the game is that the rails found in Tears of the Kingdom can be used even if you don't have a minecart. You just use shield surfing to ride these rails, which can be handy on the starting island of the game. However, as we all know, at some point the fun will end, because the shield you're using will break at some point. But according to Exanato22, this isn't the case when you're on the rails. Apparently, the shield will never break or take any damage when doing this. Which is a bold claim, because normally your shield will degrade and take damage no matter what you do in the game. So I went to the sky to test this myth, and as you can imagine, this took quite a while, because I had to shield surf on rails again and again to see if anything would happen. And so after doing this for ages, I found out that nothing really happens. The shield didn't break and wasn't even damaged as far as I could see. So weirdly enough, this seems to be true. Shield surfing on rails can be done forever, which is quite nice, because man, if it did break right here, I would fall all the way down. Number 8. As you can imagine, these videos are usually filled with claims that are useful in the game. They make combat easier, allow you to cheat puzzles or challenges, and more. However, sometimes we also add claims to these videos that aren't necessarily useful in the game, but they are interesting or fun. And for number 8, we will look at one that falls into this category, because MarkMC9 said, if you hit a stake with a beam emitter, it makes music, which sounded like a fun claim to test. And so I jumped into the game and set up a little experiment. These stakes were set up at different height levels, and I hit them with a beam emitter to see what would happen. And I found out that they actually do make sound. And online, you can even find videos of people playing entire songs with these things, which is really cool. Now, I have no idea why this was added by Nintendo, but it's a fun little Easter egg. And as you can see right here, this claim is true. Number 7. Now in the last 2 videos, I experimented a lot with arrows and whether the Zonai abilities work on them, but after sharing my findings, I got a lot of comments from people to experiment more with them. For example, Edward New Harvey said, "You definitely can recall meat, wood, and various other fused items when shot by an arrow. So what if an enemy is shooting a bomb or any other fused arrows at you?" Well, this was an interesting point that was made by many others as well, so I had to test it. And to start off, I tried this by attempting to recall my own fused arrows. And when trying to do so, I saw something interesting. Each time I shot the arrow, I couldn't recall it even if something like monster guts was attached to it. But then when it hit the ground and the item and arrow became separate from each other, I could use recall on the item and it would follow the trajectory of the arrow I just shot. So this shows that the arrow, even when fused with something, can't be recalled. But as soon as they are detached from each other, you can use the ability, but only on the item. It's clear that Nintendo designed all of this in such a way that recalling an arrow is impossible, no matter what you do. I couldn't pull it off anyway, and I added multiple different types of things to the tip. So yeah, this claim is false. Number 6. Elemental effects are a big thing in the game, for example in combat where it can have different effects, or in the world where you need to keep an eye on the climate so you don't die. However, these aren't the only things you gotta keep in mind. For example, when you go inside of Death Mountain, it becomes so hot that certain items can't be used. If you throw a bomb flower, it will immediately explode, which is a bad thing, because you will most likely die due to the explosion. However, someone in the comments came up with a good idea. Sasavik said, "Would Sidon's water shield allow bomb throwing on Death Mountain? It does shield you from the heat after all, so hey, maybe it works." And this makes sense. And so I went into the depths of Death Mountain and tried this myth to see if it would work. And the answer is yes. However, it isn't as great as you would imagine. Sure, you can throw the bomb, but as soon as it's exposed to the heat, it will explode. However, the water shield actually protects you from the explosion, and so you won't take any damage at all. So yeah, this claim isn't 100% true, but also not 100% false. So I would put this in the plausible category. Sure, you can throw it without dying, but the heat will still affect the bomb, and so it explodes almost immediately. Number 5. In Tears of the Kingdom, a lot of new special plants were added, and all of them have quite unique effects. And one of the best ones out there is the Dazzle Fruit, an item that can stun, but it's also very effective against stealth enemies. And as mentioned, I did some testing on stealth enemies, and due to this, people wanted me to experiment more. And so this commenter, who has a bit of a weird name, said if you fuse a Dazzle Fruit to an arrow and manage to shoot the Stelnox in its eye, it does massive damage, ejects the eye, and it's a one-hit kill. Now this sounded quite believable, and so I went to test it after I messed with his ribs for a bit. And this one took a while to get right, and it was quite tricky. And to be honest, my findings were quite inconsistent. I hit him in the eye a couple of times, and while it did do extra damage, the effect described by the commenter wasn't seen. But then one arrow did have the effect we wanted. So sometimes it works, and other times it doesn't? It's tricky. Maybe it only works if you hit a very specific spot of the eye. It seems like that's the case at least. So when it comes to this claim, I will say it's possible, but hard to pull off. Number 4. In the past, we have messed around with stone taluses, especially the new hearts that they drop, and in one of my recent videos I actually got a comment that made a very big claim that seemed like a lie. Z-Meat Gears Waffles said, if you fuse a stone talus heart to your shield, it will reflect projectiles back at enemies. Now I didn't believe this at all, but I still tested it, and when I did, I wasn't disappointed. As expected, this claim was false. Sure, it does stop the arrows pretty well, but they don't bounce back and hit the enemy, which makes sense because, I mean, it's a rock. It absorbs all the energy of the arrow and it falls to the ground or just breaks. Number 3. Now in this video, we have seen that Sidon's ability is useful for more than just getting rid of weird goop. It can be a shield of sorts as well. But does it have any drawbacks? I mean, you're surrounded by water, so what happens if you mess with an electric item? Well, Sushi Blocks wondered, if you use an electric arrow inside of Sidon's water bubble, will you die? And I think this is a pretty good question, because following Nintendo's logic, it should hurt you. But upon testing it, I found out that it does nothing. When you try to throw electric choo-choo jelly, it won't shock you. Well, unless you throw it at your feet. And the same goes for any arrow that has an electrical item attached to it. You can shoot without any problems. So this claim is false. Weirdly enough, being surrounded by water isn't a problem this time, while normally it is. Number 2. Now this one has been requested by the same person a couple of times, and so I had to cover it. It is quite a simple myth, but I was still curious if it would work, even though it doesn't really matter at all. Checkmate said, landing on a lily pad in water also cancels fall damage. But is this really a thing? Well, I went to the big starting sky island and tried it there using a spring, because with that, I could get high enough in the sky that landing on the ground would do big damage. But when I landed on the lily pad in the water, I saw that I didn't take any damage at all. So just like normal water, it will break your fall. Now I will admit that this isn't really useful or anything, because the lily pads are always found in water, but it's still a fun little fact, I guess. Number 1. Now to end this video with a bang, we will be trying something interesting that could be life-changing, if it's real at least. Because another myth has popped up in the comment section about the Gloom Hands, and how you can defeat them in a blink of an eye. Andrew Blackley asked me if it's possible to kill multiple Gloom Hands with one ancient blade fused to an arrow. Now I wasn't sure if this could be done. I mean, the ancient blade is one of the most powerful items in the game, as it harnesses the forces of ancient Sheikah technology, but who knows if it can defeat so many strong enemies at once. And so I went to my beloved Gloomhand friends, who I literally visit on a weekly basis due to all the requests that you lovelies make. And I greeted them with a warm welcome in the form of an ancient blade arrow, which instantly killed one of them. But 2 others also took damage, but it didn't even kill them. And upon trying this again, I damaged 3 of them, but none died. So sadly enough, this isn't as effective as you would imagine. Maybe it's possible, but probably not. Which means that this claim is false, and a bit of a waste of an ancient blade. Now those were all the myths for today, but don't worry, I made more videos like this, so be sure to check them out. Also leave your ideas below, I read a lot of comments, and feature your suggestions in the videos. So any myths for Tears of the Kingdom or other games would be great. Thank you all so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, be sure to leave your comments with ideas to improve the show, myths for other video games, like Mario or other Zelda games, or this Zelda game, leave them below. Be sure to like, subscribe, click the bell button, do all that good stuff. I will make more of these videos and want to expand into other games like Super Mario, Mario Kart, more Zelda, blah blah blah. So stick around, it will be cool. Also, yeah, just say sick shit in the comment section. Spit some bars, bro. Let's start like an absolute rap battle. Hit me up. Dr.Wily on the block. Peace.